Galileo, exploring the universe, encountering resistance. Exploration, encounter, and exchange in history by Antonio Alejandro Gil Flores. In questions of science, the authority of 1,000 is not worth the humble reasoning of a single individual. Galileo, exploring the universe, encountering resistance. Galileo Galilei is considered the father of modern science because of the discoveries he did while he was exploring the universe that unfortunately had to cease eventually, since he encountered the Church in one of the worst and most delicate moments in history. His discoveries are being used nowadays, and his deeds have been known and admired ever since. Early life and family. Galileo Galilei was born in 1564 in Pisa, Italy, and was the first of 7 children, although only 4 of them got to the adult age. His father was a famous lutenist, and it is believed that most of his early scientific education came from him. Galileo was a very devoted person, and in 1779, being in Florence, he was at the Santa Maria di Vallombrosa, situated in a village at the southeast of Florence, where he was considering the idea of joining the order. Nonetheless, his father kept him from doing this, since he wanted him to study medicine in the University of Pisa, where he stayed for 2 years, but finally quitted and joined the mathematics grade at the University of Florence, where after a couple of years he left due to financial problems. In his last year there, he was exposed to Aristotelian view of the universe, idea that he drifted away and started to investigate later on. Studying maths helped him make his mind about what he could do and get more interested in physics. Besides, he started to question ideas such as the Archimedes principle or the universal law of acceleration. His work and discoveries while exploring the universe. In 1586, Galileo begins to work on certain problems in the field of physics, following Archimedes rather than Aristotle. From 1589 to 1592, he taught mathematics at the University of Pisa, and during those years he began writing the book on motion, that could not be published but could contain some of his first ideas concerning motion. In 1592, he would get the chair of mathematics at the University of Padua, where he would stay until 1610. During that decade, he would get a few patents, like a pump driven by horses in 1594 or the geometric and military compass in 1597. In 1604, Galileo published the operation of the geometrical military compass. He also constructed a hydrostatic balance for measuring small objects. That same year, Galileo refined his theories on motion and falling objects and developed the universal law of acceleration. In July 1609, Galileo built his own telescope after hearing from Netherlands about a device similar to it. In March 1610, he published a small booklet, The Starry Messenger, denying several statements that were believed by people at that time, like the shape of the moon, the phases of Venus, or the movement of the moons of Jupiter. Soon, Galileo began mounting a body of evidence that supported Copernican theory and contradicted Aristotle and Church's doctrine, which stated that the universe was driven by the geocentrism, a law that says that the Earth was the center of the universe. Since he first got to stare at the sky, he defended Copernican and his idea of heliocentrism, which states that the planets and the stars spin around the sun, which is actually not definitely right, but it's closer to the truth. In 1612, he published his discourse on bodies in water, refuting the Aristotelian explanation of why objects float in water. In 1613, Galileo wrote a letter to a student to explain how Copernican theory did not contradict biblical passages, stating that the scripture was written from an earthly perspective and implied that science provided a different and very accurate perspective. The letter was made public, and Church Inquisition consultants pronounced Copernican theory heretical. In 1616, Galileo was ordered not to hold, teach, or defend in any manner the Copernican theory regarding the motion of the Earth. Galileo obeyed the order for 7 years, partly to make life easier and partly because he was a devoted Catholic. In 1632, Galileo published the dialogue concerning the 2 chief world systems. A discussion among 3 people, one who supports Copernicus' heliocentric theory of the universe, one who argues against it, and one who is impartial. Though Galileo claimed that dialogues was neutral, it was clearly not. Historical context. In order to understand the swift reaction the Church had to Galileo's dialogue concerning the two chief world systems, it is important to know the situation in which these facts took place. It was the 16th century, where in the process known as the Spanish Inquisition, there was a movement created by the Catholic King and Queen of Spain in 1478 in order to maintain Catholic orthodoxy in their kingdoms and to replace the medieval Inquisition, which was under papal control. The movement that began 2 decades prior didn't stop there and lasted until 1834. During those 4 centuries, they didn't want any vague revolution to happen, and in order to do that, they proclaimed that any new idea that contradicted any of the theories believed by the Church then would be prohibited to be spread or taught, since they didn't want new thinkers or social revolutions, and whoever refused to follow this idea would, of course, be punished. Encountering Church. Thus, when the Inquisition heard about the letter that Galileo wrote to one of his students defending Copernicus, they decided to act. Galileo's affair lasted from September 1632 to July 1633, period in which he was always treated with respect and never imprisoned. They just wanted him to say the truth and explained to him that the only right theory was the one understood from literal interpretations on the scriptures, such as, "Tremble before him, all the earth. Yes, the world is established, it shall never be moved. The Lord reigns, he is robed in majesty. The Lord is robed, he has put on a strength as his belt. Yes, the world is established, it shall never be moved." Thus, in a final attempt to break him, Galileo was threatened with torture, and he finally admitted he had supported Copernican theory, but privately held that these statements were correct. Even though his idea was supported by a very respected cardinal called Robert Bellarmine, he was convicted of heresy and spent his remaining years under house arrest as an example for the rest of the new thinkers that dared to fight against the Church. What Galileo Galilei means nowadays. His discoveries and improvements on the swing of pendulums have been applied to the design of the grandfather clock and the metronome. Modern telescopes are based on the upgrades that he did on the very first ones. His methods in the study of science are still being used, and thus he earned the nickname of the father of modern science. Besides, he built the first thermometer. Without his improvements and inventions, our life would be way different. Not only in the science field, but in the social one, he created a great revolution. His affair divided the Church between those who thought that he was actually right and those who didn't think so. His case has been a matter of debate ever since, and Pope John Paul II tried to fix this when, while at Mass in Rome in 1992, he actually apologized for what happened to him and stated that he was definitely right and the whole Church was sorry because of what happened to him. Thus, Galileo, the father of modern science, did not only change the base of scientific method, not only change our lives, he also changed the way that society acted.